Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by a man of renowned intellect in this industry. It's Alex Roger, who's the founder of the International Cannabis Business Conference. Alex, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Owen. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm delighted, mate. I've been chasing you for a long time to try and get you on the show, so I'm delighted. I know you're going to have a wealth of information for the audience. I'm going to kick things off with something that I know probably everybody are going to like. A lot of people already know you're part of the industry, but the first topic is Jack Herrera. I know you've got a lot of stories with this in your early days. Can you give everybody an overview of the character of Jack Herrera, why he was called the Hemperor?
Yeah, I'd love to. Jack was basically my mentor, my original mentor in the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry, it was a lot different 30 years ago. I met Jack in 93 in Santa Cruz, California. And he was touring around California and America, and he was just promoting legalization. He's called the Emperor because he wrote a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And I think the book first came out in like 84 or 85. And it was basically about why hemp was made illegal. And it was a succinct and concise kind of overview of why we're dealing in a time of prohibition for cannabis and hemp. And he was insanely passionate about the movement. He didn't smoke weed until he was 30 and got out of the army. And then when he did smoke weed, he was like, damn, they've been lying to me the whole time. This is pretty benign stuff here. And they said it was like the devil's weed. And something just lit up in him, and he became there's nobody that I could even think of that came close to pushing cannabis reform more than Jack Herrera. And he was a gruff old son of a buck, and he took no prisoners, and he was just very direct. And if you weren't into cannabis being legalized like tomatoes, as he would say, then he wasn't, or wine, he wasn't into your model of over-regulation. He thought it to be a very benign thing, and that everybody should have access to it. And he fought until his dying day to make that happen.
That's amazing. He must have very thick skin in the early days. I'm sure there was a lot of shade thrown his way.
I mean, for sure. It's like, we were out on Haight-Ashbury or Telegraph Avenue with Jack, or down at the LA Coliseum in the parking lot, even in the parking lot of the Dead shows. It's like, you never know who would be like, more like when it was on the street, though, when people would come up, we'd have our signs with legalizing weed, and they would admonish us and chastise us or laugh. And I always say, nobody's laughing now, Owen. Us.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure. I'm going to move on to the next topic because it's a pretty huge and popular conference that happens in the three major cities. Can you give everybody an overview of how you set up the ICBC, its history, and what the plans are for the future?
Basically, I've been producing events my whole life, mostly music events. And then about 10 years ago, I own a big medical marijuana clinic in Oregon. And about 10 years ago, we're getting all these questions that were asked to us about this new burgeoning industry in America. 2 and 2 equal 4 to me. And I was like, well, let's put this conference together. And so we created the biggest B2B conference in Oregon. And since I had lived in Europe for 8 years and was very Euro savvy and Euro passionate, I wanted to do events over there and all around the world. And I just saw a niche in international cannabis business in 2014, basically, is when I came up with the idea for the ICBC. And we just pushed forward. And I went to I went to Germany. I went to Berlin. And the Germans were like, "Oh, Alex, we are so worried for you. We do not know if an event like this will happen. $500 a ticket is a lot of money." And and I was like, "Well, I'm worried for me too." And we just took a big chance, and I just went for it. And Berlin now has become the biggest B2B event in Europe, and we're scaling that event. Next year, it's going to be almost 5,000 people and about 350 companies with over 75 countries represented. So we are scaling that model big time. And I just knew Germany is kind of the center of continental Europe, and whatever they do goes Europe. So I figured they're going to eventually go. They did with medical. They are now with CBD. Legalization looks on the horizon, and looks like it's on the horizon. And then, and otherwise, I do these other satellite events. I teamed up with Cannabis, the biggest consumer event in Europe. And we do the one-day B2B before then, and then we do a series of investment events in Zurich, Switzerland, and we're going to be in Croatia next year. I'm starting to do a series on a Mediterranean retreat series, all small, really intimate events. Everything's about 250 people. Barcelona with Cannabis, that's about 1,000 people. But Berlin is the event we're scaling, and then we're keeping our other events really intimate and just smaller and not scaling them.
Okay, amazing. Some more niche marketed events for targeted exact industries, and then the main scalable event. I'd highly recommend anybody who hasn't been to the one in Berlin should definitely book their ticket for next year. There was 3 just previously happened in August, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we pulled it off in August. It was miracles do happen on.
Yeah, and the challenges around those events, I'm sure, will be less hindered next year. Will there be more freedom and
Right.
accessibility for people to come?
Yeah.
So book your tickets for next year before it sells out. I'd highly recommend it. Going to move on to the last topic, which is an overview of European cannabis. You've got a deep understanding yourself of the various different territories. The recent elections in Germany bode well for a legalized industry over there. What do you know on the ground that you might be able to inform the viewers?
Yeah, well, we've been following this for a long time. They've called it the Jamaica Coalition, and the SPD, which are basically the conservatives, or excuse me, the CDU, which are basically the conservatives, have been in power for now, 16 years. And although we even saw a little bit of movement with the CDU, we had a member of the CDU speak at the last ICBC, which was historical. However, what we see now in Germany is a huge shakeup, and they're going to form the coalition will probably be with the Greens and the FDP party, and so with the Social Democrats. So it looks like the CDU, the conservative government, will not be part of this new coalition. And so 2 of the 3 members of the coalition have clear and succinct plans for legalization. And even when I ask my most pessimistic, cynical German friends of how they feel about legalization, a year ago they would have been like, we're not sure, and blah, blah. Now everyone seems to think that legalization is on the horizon, just since the last few months, when we could see that when we could see what the polling numbers were for the election. Everything's completely shaken up in Europe, and a lot of people think that legalization is it'll be on the forefront of the new coalition's agenda.
Yeah, I think the legal experts in the cannabis industry in Germany are going to do well over the next 12 to 24 months with the applications of licenses.
Yeah, we are very happy about the election results when it comes to cannabis specifically, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
At least for me.
What other territories? We saw Luxembourg recede a little bit, basically on their big announcement that they're going to have an industry, but I don't know whether that was just one outlier of a politician speaking out of turn, or did you hear more about it?
Look, here's what I think. I think after all this, everyone thinks it could be Luxembourg or Sweden or Portugal, or they have ideas. Switzerland, Luxembourg, or Portugal. They think those are going to be the places that will legalize first. And I actually think it's going to be Germany now. And I think Germany will be the first country to legalize in like a robust, real legalization, not a decrim, but a
recreational full market.
Yeah. And I think that was the case with medical. And I think that, I wouldn't have predicted this a year ago, but now I think that Germany will actually have the first clear legalization laws in Europe before Luxembourg, before Switzerland. And Luxembourg and Switzerland are really important, or Switzerland is even more important. But But when Germany legalizes, then that, Europe goes where Germany goes generally.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a seminal moment, but that's my big, bold prediction.
Yeah, no, I think that's if you get Germany going and then France goes hand in hand, I think you'll have a European flip within 12 to 18 months.
It could be that close. We really actually think that it might be within 12 to 18 months. Yeah.
And have you see, obviously the medical industry is leading the way at the moment in Europe. That's pretty much where all the talk is at the moment. You've got a lot of territories with Denmark, have their Made in Denmark brand coming in the pharmaceutical industry, strong presence in pharma. Malta, same strong presence in pharma. They've started processing product coming into there, turning it into goods with the Made in Malta sign. Do you see those two territories having a leg up on everywhere else? Or do you see somewhere like the UK or Ireland, which is already got the home base for a lot of the major global headquarters for companies here anyway? I don't see it's a reason why cannabis might not be the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the previous infrastructure matters necessarily of where someone's poised in terms of a farmer perspective, because this is kind of it's though it is pharma, and though that infrastructure could be used and one day might be used. Right now, you see, I think Denmark is pretty much I mean, Malta has its niche, right? No doubt. But it's so small. Denmark is I think they're next to Bedrock and from Holland. Denmark's putting the most cannabis into the medical market in Germany, and they're doing it in a way that's efficient, smart, a good price, a decent product. I'm from the West Coast, so all of the medical
it doesn't compare.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I think Denmark with their past in ornamental flower growing and the kind of strong tissue culture departments that they've got up there, they seem to be growing as premium a product as they've gotten within a couple of years growth.
Totally. They've done a great job. And basically they did what Holland should have done and what we expected maybe Holland or the Netherlands to do, right? And then Denmark just kind of stepped in and took it to the next level when Holland was they never had the advocacy or the organization to push something like this to the next degree like Denmark did. They just kind of have a monopoly with Bedrock, and then they have their coffee shop scene. So it was so I was surprised Holland didn't do it, but Denmark did it and they took the reins.
Yeah. And do you see the fact that Europe is an agricultural heavy society and civilization, once legalization comes, do you see Ireland having its own strain, France having its own strain, Spain having its own dominant strain, and a kind of nuanced, almost like wine or something like that?
For sure. I mean, I think that's just what cannabis is and what cannabis does. And I think the region will help. Obviously, the southern regions are better, but because of it is so in America, we grow a lot of outdoor cannabis, right? But in Europe, because it's a little more clinical, a lot of it's going to be, at least at the beginning, mandated
hydroponics.
To be, yeah, and it's not something I like. I like soil grown, sun grown cannabis. That's what I use. It's just a more chill profile, not as big up and down, a little more consistent. I have the luxury of that because I live on the West Coast, but of that option. But yeah, no, I think that I think the sooner people, whatever countries legalize first or get into the game, they're going to be able to have this like branding advantage also of saying, oh, that's some Slovenian weed, or that's man, the Irish boys, lads know what they're doing and they've got it all dialed up. And so now's the time to put these ideas together and really start branding not only the weed, but then added value products from that area also.
Yeah, I think the customer will buy into specific culture like they do with every other brand, whether it's the taste of freshness of Ireland or whether it's the cool chillness of Spain or Portugal or whatever it may be. Before I let you go, I'd be remiss to ask you, a man who lives in the West Coast, what's the best strain that you've ever found or consumed?
Well, I mean, we like the OG Kush out here. Everything has OG Kush in it. when you get that pure OG Kush, it's awesome. I mean, the cookies, the Girl Scout cookies, the train wreck here in Southern Oregon is popular. All these strains are great. You know, I will say this though, for me, my personal strain was, I lived in Amsterdam 20 years ago, and there was a coffee shop called the Katsu, and it specialized in sativa. And right when you walked in this coffee shop, you could smell the distinct smell. It's like the opposite of Kush, right? Kush is the hardcore indica, and then the hazes were the hardcore sativas. And now, so on the West Coast, we have everything. We have the best weed, the best options, the best everything. But what we don't have still is, someone will say, "Oh, that's part haze," or that's a hybrid sativa dominant, or whatever. There's no more pure sativas like when I walked into the Katsu in Amsterdam years ago and smoked Neville's Haze or the Silver Pearl or the Super Silver. These don't exist on the West Coast, and if I could ever get some like old school haze like that, it would be amazing. So as green as the grass is here, we don't have that. One of my favorite strains, which is the haze. It's a total sativa, and otherwise we like the Kush out here, man.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. It's been amazing talking to you. I could talk to you all day. You're an absolute gentleman for taking your time out for me and the viewers. And for everybody, check out the website below, internationalcbc.com. Highly recommend booking your tickets for next year. It's an amazing event. And thank you very much for your time, Alex.
Thanks, Owen. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.